Hello, I'm going to be presenting our paper on linking level segments. My name is Colin, and I worked on this with Seth Cooper, my advisor. My work focuses mainly on procedural content generation, specifically on the generation and use of level segments. A level segment is a short piece of a level that can be used to form larger levels. So the question you probably have is, why level segments? And I want to answer this with an example. Imagine we want to build a complex Mario level. Say it starts out relatively empty, then we add a dense portion, and then something sparse but with some enemies, and then perhaps we add a lot of enemies, and then we want to finish the level simply with just something empty again. And there are ways we can do this. We can use graph grammars, behavior trees, search-based methods, machine learning approaches, even reinforcement learning, and more. So why not generate the whole level at once? There are two problems. First, the search space to generate a level with so many criteria is large and difficult. Second, each candidate solution would have to be tested to make sure that it is actually completable. A generator could achieve this task, but it would be slow, and we believe the better way is to generate small level segments and connect them together. So imagine we have a segment generator and we ask it to generate the segments described. We may get something like this. First, we get the pretty empty segment, then it's pretty dense, and so on and so on. Now we can make a larger level by concatenating each level segment together, but there is a problem. For those familiar with Mario, you may recognize the two problems. The first problem is shown in the red box. The movement set for Mario makes it impossible for the player to jump high enough to reach the platform, which makes the level not completable. The second problem is shown in the red box, but now on the right. Mario has a structure for pipes, which is 2 columns wide. When we concatenate 2 segments together, though, one segment had an incomplete pipe, and the final segment did not complete it, and we are left with a broken structure. There are many ways to try to resolve this already in the literature. Volz and colleagues have discussed using neural networks to repair visually faulty levels. There is also an approach where the level segments generated are required to have a padding of 2 level slices on either side, which addresses the problem of broken structures and theoretically handles completability. Further, we can always use a generate and test framework where new level segments are generated and tested until they work together. In this work, though, we call for linking level segments with linkers. A linker is a tiny level segment that connects 2 level segments. In this example, a linker would be placed where every plus sign is, which takes us to the goals of a linker. A linker should result in a full level that is completable, which is to say that the player can get from the beginning to the end. A linker should result in a full level that is unbroken, which is to say that a full level should contain no broken in-game structures. A linker is usable if it results in a level that is completable and unbroken. With those definitions out of the way, we can see what a sample linker would look like in our contrived example. The tan boxes represent padding, so we have a clear start and an end goal. The magenta box on the left shows that a linker was added to make the jump possible. The magenta box on the right shows that a linker was added to complete the pipe structure. And also note that a linker was not added for the other segments. Now we'll discuss our approach to making linkers. To test, we use 3 games: Mario, Kid Icarus, and Dungeon Grams. Dungeon Grams is a small custom roguelike we made for previous work. For more details on it, you can see our paper or go to my website where you can actually play a version of it. To test linking, we use a dataset of level segments from our previous work, Gramlage, which I worked on with Alejandro Hervela and Seth Cooper. There are 2 important points to note. First, every level segment in the dataset is n-gram generable, which, put simply, means that the level follows a set pattern, but there are more details in the paper if you're curious. The second point to note is that the level segments come in this grid structure that you can see. We use this grid to build a directed graph to test linking by linking neighbors in the grid together. As an example, say we want to start with the origin, which is shown with the red box. There are 2 possible neighbors, up and to the right. If the cell was towards the middle, then there are potential neighbors in all 4 cardinal directions. To put this in perspective, Mario has just over 13,000 possible links. Kid Icarus has almost 9,500 possible links, and Dungeon Grams has just over 6,000. Now let's look at how we build a linker, and we start with structure completion. Structure completion has the goal of completing any in-game structures. On the right, we can see the structures that each game has. Mario has pipes, Kid Icarus has doors, and Dungeon Grams has a structure made of backward and forward slashes. To complete these structures, we build a forward and backward Markov chain from input levels where slices are filtered to only include level slices that include a structure. The forward chain is responsible for completing structures from the source segment. The backward chain is responsible for completing structures from the target segment. As an example, see this pipe in this example Mario level. The tan line in the image marks the end of the source segment and the beginning of the target segment. Because the incomplete pipe starts at the end of the source segment, the forward Markov chain is responsible for completing the pipe like so. For those curious about the technical details on how these work, please see our paper. But I do want to point out that there is one weakness in this approach. Because we rely on n-grams and level slices, structure completion can fail for unseen input. This means, for example, that our approach to linking would not work well for level segments generated by a neural network. With that, let's look at how we can ensure that linked levels are completable, and note that we assume that the level segments themselves are already completable. To ensure completability, we use linking slices, which are level slices that do not contain in-game structures. We then run a tree search on these linking slices till a max depth is found or a linker that makes the level completable is found. A linker can be empty. Also, we can use custom level slices. For example, we used these 3 custom linking slices for Icarus. We found that this greatly reduced the time to find a linker and also has the potential of giving designers more control over the kind of linkers produced. So in summary, our linking algorithm works by looping through the forward and the backward Markov chain and then running a tree search. In regards to the forward and the backward chains, it is perfectly valid for there to be no output, in which case an empty array with no level slices would be the only output for either or both chains. Next, note that we're using a for loop here, and this is because it is possible for there to be multiple ways to complete a structure. And this is actually very much true in the case of Dungeongrams because we designed it to be that way. Next, when we run the tree search to find any required linking slices between the 2 level segments, we're also using the completed structures. If there is an output, we return the link. Otherwise, we return none because there was no way that this algorithm was able to find a linker. Now we can look at the results and we compare concatenation to our linking approach. For Mario, we find that concatenation works fairly well with 89% of the levels being usable. However, our linking approach is able to find a usable linker for every possible link. For Icarus, we find that concatenation works well most of the time for structures, but often fails to generate a completable level at just 11%. Linking, though, works for 99% of all level segments. Finally, for Dungeongrams, we find that concatenation works for 23% of the links. In contrast, linking works 100% of the time. A question you may have is, how do these links affect the levels? We assess this in 2 ways. First, we examine the length of the linkers found. For Mario, we find that the average length is 0.110, with a median of 0 and a max of 2. For Icarus, the average length is just under 3, with a median of 3 and a max of 6. Finally, for Dungeongrams, we find that the mean length is in between Mario and Icarus, but the max is still 6. The second way we examine how links affect levels is the change in behavioral characteristics, or d sub bc. In simple terms, a small d sub bc represents the fact that the linker did little to change the behavioral characteristics of a linked level. From the results, we can see that the value is small for all 3 games, which is a promising indication that linkers are unobtrusive to the original goal set by the designer. Now, we'll look at 2 examples. The first example shows a linker built for Mario. We can see that the concatenation has a gap that is too large. Linking resolves this by adding 1 linking slice that the player can jump onto, and then complete the level. This second example shows a linker built for Dungeongrams. In concatenation, we can see that there are 2 incomplete structures, and the player cannot make it to the end. Linking resolves this by using the forward chain to resolve the structure on the left, and the backward chain to resolve the structure on the right. The tree search also adds 1 linking slice, which gives the player the necessary stamina to get to the end. One question we had was, can these linkers we built for 2 segments be used to build even larger levels? To test this, we use the directed graph and build levels 1,000 times. For both Icarus and Mario, the linkers work perfectly well for levels made of 2, 3, 4, and 5 segments. This, though, was not the case for Dungeongrams. Dungeongrams has a long-term dependency in that every movement costs stamina. At 3 segments, 99% of the levels were completable, at 4 just 98, and at 5 only 97. We tried to address this with DG Food. DG Food forces there to be at least 1 linking slice from the tree search. The linking slices for Dungeongrams have food at either the top, the middle, or the bottom, so in effect require there to be at least 1 food in the linker. Using this, the probabilities went up to 99% for all segment sizes. Still not perfect, but an improvement. This is an example of regular linking versus DG food. On the top, you can see that the backward chain completes one structure on the left and does nothing on the right. DG food, though, completes the structure and adds one food on the left. It also adds one food on the right, which makes the level completable. On the right, you can see a sample of concatenation versus linking for Kid Icarus. As for future work, the first thing we are interested in addressing is the problem we found for dungeograms by linking for k slices, where we currently only solve for k equals 2. Secondly, we want to address the problem with structure completion by coming up with a method that will work with any level segment generator. Lastly, we want to use the directed graph we built to build levels tailored to players. In conclusion, linking is a powerful, new method to form levels from level segments. We hope you will consider it in your future work, and here is a link to our repository with all the code. For those interested in the more technical details, please read our paper and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much for listening to the talk, and I hope you enjoyed it.